What if Deku stayed quirkless? Chapter 8. Deku got up out of his hospital bed. His entire body ached and groaned with pain. He stumbled over to the mirror to take a look at himself. As he did, Kirishima and the rest of Class 1A walked in. "Hey, how are you feeling, man?" asked Kirishima. "Does my hair look darker to you?" asked Deku. Deku turned, looking at Kirishima. The red-headed hero leaned in, getting a closer look. "Did you dye it?" asked Kirishima. I've never dyed my hair," said Deku. "Weird. It's definitely darker than before the training camp," said Kirishima. The two shrugged it off, then turned to the rest of the class. "So, what's up?" asked Deku. "We want to go after Bakugo. I overheard Yaoyorozu talking to All Might and the police, and she put a tracker on the Nomu that attacked us in the woods. I've already talked to her, and she's agreed to help us," said Kirishima. "Kirishima, you can't go. How are you going to save Bakugo without attacking the villains?" asked Ida. "I don't know, okay? All I know is that my friend was kidnapped and I couldn't help him." "Who is going to help me?" asked Kirishima. "Midoriya?" asked Kirishima. Deku looked at the ground. Bakugo and I's relationship is complicated. I hated him for a long time, but when I saw him again I realised he isn't as bad as I thought. He can be an unbearable arse sometimes, but he's a good person. I'll help you," said Deku. The class talked for a bit longer, with Todoroki and Ida agreeing to join. When it was dark, the group headed out. After a short train ride, the group found themselves walking down the side of a large warehouse. Suddenly there was a massive smashing sound as Mount Lady's foot smashed through the roof of the building. Within seconds, the heroes restrained all the Nomu inside. A few calm moments passed, then they heard the sound of clapping. "Very good, heroes. You're all very impressive, but right now you're in my way," said All for One. Best Genius used his fibers to restrain the villain, but with a blast of his air cannon he freed himself. All for One raised his air cannon, blowing a hole straight through Best Genius and destroying the building. The group of students panicked and shook behind the wall that they were hiding behind. Suddenly they were pulled out of their shock by the sound of Bakugo and the League coughing and spluttering. They looked round and saw Bakugo standing before All for One. I need to save him," said Deku. Deku went to take a step forward, but Ida stopped him. You will die. We will all die," said Ida. "I can't just do nothing," said Deku. At that moment, All Might slammed into the villain, knocking him back. "Ah, All Might. I'm impressed that you're still able to hold that form. Tell me, how much power do you have left?" asked All for One. "Enough to put you behind bars, villain," said All Might. All for One smirked, charging his air cannon. Don't be so sure," said All for One. All for One fired, knocking All Might back. You gave up one for all a long time ago, All Might. When was it? 5 months before school started?" said All for One. All for One fired blast after blast, but All Might couldn't dodge. He knew that All for One was aiming for the people behind him, and that if he dodged, they would die. All Might lunged forward, but it was just too slow. All for One fired a blast point blank into All Might's face, sending him spiraling through several buildings. "This is awful. The villain who destroyed most of Camino Ward in one attack is now fighting All Might, and I think the villain is winning," said the news reporter. All for One smirked. "I almost feel bad, All Might. Tomura worked so hard to kill you, and here I am, taking all the credit," said All for One. All Might wiped the blood from his mouth and jumped towards the villain. "I will not die today," said All Might. All Might's fist smashed into the side of All for One's face, but as the villain crashed to the ground, he fired a massive blast right into All Might's weak point. All Might was thrown into the air and coughed up blood. Whilst this was happening, Deku, Ida and Kirishima ran up one of Todoroki's ice spikes and jumped high in the air. "Come on, Bakugo!" yelled Kirishima. Immediately, Bakugo blasted into the air, grabbing Kirishima's hand. "You idiot!" said Bakugo. They landed and were walking through some back streets, heading for the main road. "You are weak and slow, All Might. I haven't decided yet. Should I take my time killing you, or should I just get it over with? I would hate to regret this later, said All For One. All Might jumped forward towards the villain, but All For One blasted him in the gut. All Might smashed into dozens of buildings and streets. Deku and Ida were walking in front of the group when suddenly the wall to their side burst apart and All Might's body shot through. Pieces of bricks and rubble pummeled into Ida and Deku's body, forcing them to the ground. The others looked where All Might was, but he had already jumped back into the fight. Deku, Ida, are you two okay? Asked Todoroki. Yeah, I'm fine, said Deku. Deku's arm was bleeding slightly, but nothing serious. They looked down at Ida, who hadn't said anything. Hey, you okay, man? Asked Deku. Deku bent down, seeing that Ida had broken his leg and his arm. The group carefully picked him up and hurried to the main road. They needed to find a medic. However, when they got there, all they saw was the shocked face of hundreds of civilians. They looked at the screens, where they met a horrid sight. All Might had shrunk into his small form, and no matter how much he tried, he couldn't expand his arm. Blood was pouring down his face, his eyes were barely staying open. It's time to die, All Might, said All For One. All For One laughed as his arm began to grow into a mess of muscle and metal. Deku looked at Ida, who was staring at the screen. He was so shocked that he'd completely forgotten about the pain running throughout his body. Ida, I can't just watch him die, said Deku. Ida's jaw dropped. Are you sure? Asked Ida. My pride isn't worth his life, said Deku. Ida smiled. They grabbed each other's bloody hands. Deku's eyes went wide as he felt a burst of power. Where is your smile now, All Might? Asked All For One. The villain rocketed towards the defeated hero, ready to crush him. All Might still had his hands up, but there wasn't any energy in them. Tenure, Ida. I think I'll pay your successor a visit later on, said All For One. All Might stared at the fist that was about to kill him. He hoped he had done enough to ensure the world was safe. Just before the fist smashed into All Might, however, a hand shot in front of it, catching it. With a yell, All For One was thrown backwards. All Might was focused, but he couldn't believe what he was seeing. In front of him stood Deku, covered in green sparks. His hair was spiked up. You Midoriya? Get out of here, it isn't safe, said All Might. Deku turned, smiling at All Might. Don't worry, All Might, you can relax. I am here, said Deku. All Might flashed back to when he first offered Deku one for all. And with your body, you'll be able to handle 100% straight away, said All Might, excited. All Might's eyes went wide. A smile spread across his face as he realised what had happened. All Might, I need something from you, said Deku. What's that? Said All Might. Deku stared at All For One. One For All's emerald lightning sparked around him as his muscles bulged with power. Permission, said Deku. All Might's smile grew. Kick his ass, young man, said All Might. Instantly, Deku lunged forward, smashing his knee into All For One's face. What the? He's so strong. How? Ida was the successor, not him, said All For One. Deku spun around, kicking All For One in the side of the head. The villain spun into the ground. All across the world, people stared in the screens in shock. The students of Class 1A had no idea how Deku was so strong, and everyone was shocked that some random kid was destroying the villain who beat All Might. All For One staggered to his feet. He's just as strong as All Might in his prime. No, he might be stronger, said All For One. All For One charged up his air cannon and fired it at Deku. Just before the blast hit, however, Deku kicked it high into the air. All For One was starting to shake with fear. He had never wanted to face a complete One For All user ever again. The villain buffed up his other arm and charged at Deku. He needed to kill him right now. Deku smirked, seeing the villain approach. He took a deep breath and lowered his stance. Just before All For One smashed into him, Deku dodged to the side and redirected All For One's massive fist into the ground. You missed, said Deku. Deku spun around, kicking the villain in the face. All For One was knocked back, but he didn't give up. He fired an air blast at the ground in front of Deku, kicking up a massive amount of dust. Then when Deku launched a punch to blast it away, All For One jumped through the dust. He grabbed He dodged past Deku's punch and grabbed him, slamming the hero into the ground. All for One pushed down on Deku's throat, but Deku didn't stop smirking. With a quick jab, he crushed the bones in All for One's forearm. Deku jumped to his feet, launching a massive spin kick into the villain's jaw. All for One staggered backwards as Deku formed a claw with his hand. "Now, let's see what this new technique can do," said Deku. Deku swung his hand, and powerful air pressure slashed forward. "Fist of whirling wind, slashing steel," said Deku. 3 deep cuts formed across the villain's body, and he fell to his knees. Deku walked over. His body was burning from the power of One for All. "Goodbye, villain," said Deku. Deku swung with all his force, burying One for All's head in the ground. The ground splintered and cracked with the force. Deku got up, walking over to All Might. He grabbed the symbol of peace by the arm and raised it high into the air. All across the world, people erupted in cheers of success. The police quickly rushed into the battleground to arrest All for One. "Thank you, young Midor." All Might was cut off when Deku's eyes closed and he passed out, collapsing to All Might's arms. The next day, Deku woke up in hospital. "Welcome back," said All Might. Deku sat up. His body ached all over. "First off, thank you, young man. You saved my life," said All Might. Deku smirked. "Second, I'm sorry I was wrong. Turns out your body couldn't handle 100%. You have pulled so many muscles," said All Might. Deku laughed, rubbing his head. "I don't feel it anymore." "What happened?" asked Deku. "One for All never left either. I'm not sure how, but he managed to just take some of the energy and use it," said All Might. "So I'm still quirkless?" asked Deku. "Yes, you are," said All Might. "Good. I don't like handouts," said Deku. All Might laughed. "I don't know how you did it, but you performed a miracle." "Thank you," said All Might. All Might got up as the doctor entered the room. "Take good care of the kid," said All Might. "Yes, sir," said the doctor. All Might left the room, and the doctor stood at the end of the bed with a confused expression. "We just got the results from your blood test that we took after the forest camp. We saw something very unusual. Do you remember when I said that you were healing unusually fast?" asked the doctor. Deku nodded. "Well, it's not because of a quirk. We can't find any quirk genes in your blood, but we did find something. Your cells, particularly those in your muscles, are mutating," said the doctor. Deku looked horrified. "We were worried too, but it's not anything negative. As far as we can tell, your body is changing to improve itself. It's as if your body is modifying itself to become a better combatant. We have already seen improvements across your body," said the doctor. The doctor passed Deku a mirror. His eyes had become bloodshot and the fight with Muscular stared back at him. One was normal, whereas the other was red. "Is it still bloodshot?" asked Deku. "No, that's not it. Your body has improved your eyes so that you can react to incoming threats faster. We've already seen changes in your other eye already." Deku was very confused. "So, what's happening?" asked Deku. "We think it's because of your incredible physical fitness, emotional drive, and your high-stress situations. You see, when you're about to die, your body will do anything to survive. This is what we think is happening. Because you almost died at the forest camp, your body is starting to fix your weaknesses and improving your strengths," said the doctor. "Do you know when it will stop?" asked Deku. The doctor shrugged. "In my personal opinion, I think it's nowhere near finished. And when it is, I wholeheartedly believe your power will be unstoppable," said the doctor. A small smile spread across Deku's face. "Now, get some rest," said the doctor. The doctor left the room, and Deku stared at his hands. "Okay, body, what do you have in store for me?" said Deku. End of chapter 8.